Now, most of you probably know me as a psytrance producer, but I've produced many genres over the years. One of which that I haven't produced though is techno. So today what I want to do is I just want to see how well I would do. I'm going to do that by roughly filming an hour of production in which I'll try to make a techno track. So we're just in an empty template over here. Of course, the very first thing that we're going to need is probably the kick drum. Now, I don't live under a rock, so I do know a little bit about techno production, even though I've never really done it. So what I'm probably going to need is a little bit of a strong kick drum. I do believe I may have some kicks in Vengeance samples that may work for this. These are some very old samples. I want the club sounds here. These seem to have some kind of snare layer on top of them. That's a little bit strong. Maybe something like that. I just want to start off experimenting with some reverb because I know a reverb is involved when making that like rumbly part of the kick drum. I want like a very dark. That feels like we're already getting somewhere. I think what I want to do is just get the reverb part though. So I'm going to set the dry wet all the way up here and then I'll freeze it. I think this is how we have to work so that we get a consistent kick every time. Let's see what we get here. We do seem to have like a really rumbly texture. Of course, I don't know if this is actually good or not, but it seems to be the kind of quality that we want to go for. Of course, now we can turn this off. Grouping it will probably be helpful, and then let's maybe EQ it a little bit. From what I understand, you only really want the super low frequencies of this reverb. Of course, we're distorting a little bit, so let's go to -9 here. I feel like it's maybe a little bit too rumbly. Okay, like to have maybe a longer noise component to this kick here. So maybe we do need to add like one of these clubby kicks. Maybe that as a layer, just getting the high frequencies of this. Okay, cool. Let's see if we can shape it a little bit with LFO tool. Yeah, that's what I don't like. I don't like that it's like sustained and even almost fades back up here. Also, one of the things that I didn't do is change the BPM. I should probably be like at 126. I guess techno nowadays, you can go a whole bunch of different BPMs. All I want to do though is unwarp all of these to make sure that they still maintain the exact same pitch and stuff like that, and they don't get any warping artifacts. And I already consolidated this, meaning that we've lost that. Yeah, that wouldn't work. We can redo it, just adding another reverb to it, I guess. Nice, exactly like that. We consolidate it once more, and then we'll add another fade here. I would like to look at this, so I'm going to set up size scope here. For any non-psytrance producers, size scope is a tool that is very common inside of psytrance production, hence the name size scope, and it allows you to just see the waveform in like one entire beat. I think what I want is a little bit more punch out of this kick drum here. Like I want that strong, harsh, knocking sound. I also think maybe we'll need to fade this in a little bit later. You can also see that the reverb already did a little bit of fading in, but maybe having it come in later like this is nice. That seems to give us a little bit of stronger bass line. I'll do some final EQing on the kick drum. I like that. Maybe a little bit of saturation would be nice. Just set this to like medium curve here. That's way too strong. Something like that maybe. Okay, let's layer this out in 8 bars. So we have 4 bars here. Maybe I should just resample this into 1, but for now I'm just going to leave it. Maybe there's some interesting stuff we can do with this later. Now we're going to need some extra drums. I think the hi-hats that I use for psytrance also work for techno. Stuff like that. Just trying out a little pattern here. Maybe something like this would be cool. I don't like how high this thing is. Pitch it down. I find that pitching around hats and other noise sounds does have a real strong impact on how the actual sound sounds. Of course, that is what you would expect, but I often refer to this as like tuning the hats to the track. In this case, I'm going for a sound that is lower than this sound over here, because I feel like the open hat is a little bit more important inside of techno. I might also just want to see if there's a drum loop available that I can use. Construction kits here. These, again, are probably a little bit more psytrance oriented. But maybe something like this would work. Nice. Final thing I want is a clap. Normally for psytrance we use snares, so I'm going to have to find a clap somewhere, maybe in here. I think you want to go for a pretty lush kind of pre-shifted clap kind of thing. These are very like big claps, not very human claps, I guess. Something like that. And I think the trick is when you have a pre-shifted clap to sometimes have it not pre-shifted. In the sense that sometimes we're going to remove this part over here. So let's say that we duplicate this over and remove it from the first one over here. You can hear that we get a very nice groove out of that. Just a little bit of difference between the two claps over here, and you can hear that it makes actually a massive difference because it just enhances the groove a lot more. So I'll duplicate that over up until here. And now this is our drum loop. And honestly, I'm pretty happy with that. I guess now it's time to get into the sound design aspect of it, which is something that I'm a little bit less prepared for. I think we're just going to start with a simple one-shot, maybe like an FM dark kind of opening sound, I guess. I am just going to use my psytrance material, so I'm just going to use like a tones from my tones pack. In this case, instead of a bandpass filter, which is the normal filter I would use for any psytrance FM synth or something like that, if I wanted to make a sweeping modulation on it, I would use a bandpass. But in this case, I want it to be darker, so I want to keep the lower frequencies, and therefore we'll use a low pass. Maybe a slightly different tone. Sounds a bit more metallic. Then of course, delay and reverb. I think a nice long delay with like a very slow timing would be nice. So 1/4 dotted. Bit stronger on the reverb. It might be a bit too strong. I've been playing a G sharp, but I don't actually know if that's the key of our track. Does this have a strong key? Let me just open up a new EQ here. It seems to rumble around A sharp. Let's see. That's actually quite a nice texture. So what if we just add a one shot like this every, I don't know, 4 bars? I don't like that it starts out being mono, so I'm going to make it stereo with a bit of detune. Okay, I think we're going to need a little bit more. I think I want to try if I can make it like a psychedelic atmosphere, the one that we usually use in psytrance, and make that work inside a track like this. So random amplitudes here in Vital. And we just want to go slightly above where it's just a normal saw wave. And then we'll randomly modulate this fairly slowly. We'll add a bandpass to this. Let's go 24 dB per octave. Again, randomly modulated fairly slowly, but with a different randomization. We don't want all of these parameters to move in the same way. In fact, I'm going to set this to sine interpolate. It might also be nice to set these two to stereo. And then the final thing that we'll need is a pitch modulation. Again, we want this to be slower, maybe even slower than the other two. And now in terms of atmosphere, we get something that sounds like this. Let's just play one long note of that. I can see something like that work as like a slower part of our track maybe. I haven't thought about arranging anything yet. I just want to get a few elements so that I can start arranging it out, and I already have enough elements to actually make like a starting arrangement. So we'll make a few more one-shots, maybe like a nice pluck. Again, texture-wise, we probably want to go for something fairly dark and industrial sounding. So again, a Tones from the Tones pack. Recipe-wise, this should be pretty much identical, but just plucky as opposed to kind of sweeping up. I was again working in the wrong key. I've been making a lot of tracks in the key of G sharp lately, so that is kind of automatically where I place my finger whenever I want to play something. Let's see here in terms of rhythm. Think for now, a bit of stereo wave here would be nice. Bit of EQing. I don't like how it's still like a fairly normal pluck. I would like it to be darker. There must be a cool effect out there that can make this stand out a bit more. Here we're losing its initial transient. I don't know that I like that. Let's experiment with maybe resonators. I think with that nice resonance, we're getting a better tone out of that. Let's add some reverb. I guess this is more like a main sequence kind of deal. So I'm going to assign it to my sequences. And I think it would be cool to have sometimes an answer to this in the form of an asset lead. So I'm just quickly going to make one. It should be fairly easy. It's always going through a high resonance filter here. And then I'll set up a macro because I probably want to automate the filter cutoff. And then we just need a very strong distortion. It might be interesting to do some asymmetrical distortion on here so that we can get some extra saw wave harmonics out of this. Maybe something cool like this for the top. And then for the bottom, some normal tube distortion like this. Okay, let's add our asset plug thingy. Might be a bit too strong. I don't like the lowest frequencies in here, so I'm actually going to do like this. I think I want a response every 2 bars to this. So I'm just going to write some simple melodies. I'm a sidetrans producer, so I don't know a lot about music theory and whatnot. I think I want to stick with minor, maybe Frisian, because that's the only real keys that I write in. And then maybe the same melody, but with opposite octaves here. That sounds a little bit childish. I guess we can see what happens if we just automate the parameters here. Bit of delay on there. Bit of stereo wave would also be nice. I like that, but I think we should pair it with another asset line, this one a little bit faster. I'm also going to go a little bit easier on the distortion, because I think that this very distorted texture would contrast nicely with one that is a little bit less distorted. And I think what we can do is just use the asset wavetable over here. So let's say that half of the wavetable is going to be for the macro here, and then the other half is going to be the envelope. This would allow us to turn kind of up the frequency of the filter, because that's how this particular wavetable is made. It's just a filter sweep over a setting that would produce into an asset sound. So now we just get like an asset sound out of that. And we can sweep that up or down. So now let's add maybe a bar melody to that. I think you want some that go down an octave. I think to make sure that this works with the other melody, we want to make sure that we hit the same key here as we did over here. This, which is C sharp. And then maybe over here, a final little thing here, little accent. Let's see if we can start some kind of arrangement with the ideas that we have now. So I think what I want to do is start the drop after, I don't know, let's say 30 seconds here. That would give us 16 bars. That would be nice. I think I want to start with just a simple intro made out of the atmosphere, which I'm going to use in the first drop segment. So I'll make this 32 bars long. And all of our sequences are going to come in later. Probably even in 2 pairings. Like what I'll probably do is have this start here, duplicate this over, duplicate this over, this over here. For now it's the only one shot, but we're probably going to replace it, maybe add a couple of extra sounds to it, something like that. And I want to make some fills towards the end here. This is kind of, in terms of the structure, it is very similar to Psytrance in that you just have 16 bars with the last bar being a fill. And the fill is just one kick drum. And maybe you can do some cool kick fills in here or something like that. But for now, we're just going to leave it like this. Delete here as well, and delete here as well. Of course, you can be more creative, like making a 2-bar fill here, making a half a bar over here, something like that. But for now, we're just going to stick with the standard stuff. So our intro is currently very boring because it's just going to be this atmosphere. And then we immediately go into this. I don't think that that's a good idea. I think I just want to start off with the kick. And then over here, maybe just the drums. Nice. And then over here, we also get the clap involved. I feel like for the kicks that go into the fill, we don't want the rumble here, because the rumble is kind of acting like the bass line in Psytrance. And it felt a little bit strange having the rumble in here, so maybe just, yeah, this is just the kick part. So going into a fill, it should now sound like this. Okay, cool. Let's add a little bit of extra interest to the intro here. First of all, I'm going to go with some kind of ambience. I believe the Cashmere pack does come with a couple. Yeah, ambience, scenes. And then we want a really long one, maybe one that we can stretch out or something like that. This could work. Okay, I just messed around with the grain size a little bit. We're using the grain texture mode over here. That gives us something like this. You can probably hear that all of the little impacts that sit in this ambience get repeated, which is the effect that I'm going after. A little bit of a trippy effect, which we can maybe enhance with some delay on this. I'm just making sure that this comes in over time. And I think what would be cool is to slowly introduce the melody over here. So the main melody that I would probably go for is this acid line, but I don't think I want to use the same patch. I think that's cool. I also think I want to end here on this last high note so that it's slowly coming in. And I think another way we can prepare the listener for the start of the drop is already having this coming in over the 8 bars here. Slowly have the delay coming in would be a cool way to transition into the drop, I guess. I think that's sounding like a nice start. I think we need a lot more one-shots and a lot more interesting sounds in here. So let's start with adding a few more of those. I think inside of Omnisphere, I have a bunch of like impacts and stuff like that may sound a little bit industrial, which could be nice. So hits and bits, I think. That sounds like a cool sound. Especially if you hold it for a while. I think a long delay on this would also be nice. It starts to act almost like an atmosphere then. Let's just make a bunch of those to add to maybe the halfway points like we have over here for all of them. That might be a little bit too boring, but maybe because we have different sounds on the different parts, it would be interesting. This is a fairly interesting sound. I'm going to freeze this. This way we get to line it up here. Okay, that gives us the sounds for the first half here. Let's add another one. Omnisphere comes with all of these amazing kind of atmospheres in here. If you go into the noisescapes, that would maybe be nice. Just to have a long note of that. Okay, I like that. Maybe a few effects would be okay, like a riser and a downlifter. Sweep down, clean. Nice, I like that. Really, when it comes to downlifters and uplifters, I mix them so low anyway that I don't really care about like the exact tonality and the exact sound that I'm getting out of it. They're background sounds after all. Sometimes I like to use a downlifter as a riser, because then I don't have to go to a different folder, because I'm really lazy when it comes to this kind of stuff. Okay, I think what would be cool is to differentiate the first half of the drop with the second half of the drop in some places by adding a ride. And I know for a fact that I have a ride somewhere that would be perfect for this. I think maybe even in Forgotten Samples already. Yeah, that sounds very techno-y to me. Would it be cool to have a small fill here without the rumble? I think I like the sound of that. In terms of continuing the structure, I think I'll do a trick that I often do in psytrance production as well, which is taking the kick for 8 bars and just having it play kind of like without the bass line. In most cases, inside of psytrance, we tend to filter out the low frequencies, but I think it would be a cool effect to not do that and just remove the rumble, because the rumble is kind of acting like the bass line here. And what you'll get is something like this. I guess I should play it from here so that the structure is maintained. I like that effect. I like the effect of bass kind of coming back in. I do think the effect is not exaggerated enough. So we can, actually from this first kick, because this is our layer and this is our main kick, we can just make this kick shorter to remove some of the lowest frequencies. Something like that. Basically, that is the same as filtering it with a high pass filter. Since the kick is always going down in pitch, removing it still means that you're removing the lowest frequencies of the kick drum. Now here, we're probably going to need some kind of riser, and we might want to have an acid line in here as well that could rise. I think I also want to high pass this here so that we can really fade it out towards the high frequencies. And then we combine that with something like a snare roll. Snare roll is of course a classic inside of techno. I think this is the snare that I always use for my rolls. It sounds terrible, this snare, but once you put it in a roll, it actually works, which is kind of funny. So to make a roll, we just low pass filter, have it slowly go up in frequency a little bit. And then the main rolling effect is just going to come from volume. Right, like going up like this. Might be cool to leave a bar or a beat here of space. I don't know if I should go back into like high energy. It feels like in techno you use lead lines for a lot longer than in psytrance. Like in psytrance, 16 bars and then a sound is done. In here, in techno, sometimes I hear it's go on for much longer, I feel like. At least from the techno that I've heard, which is not a lot. In that case, if we do that, we should make this a little bit less aggressive of a high pass. I don't know if it would be boring just going back into the same sound over here without any changes. Well, the only change, I guess, is that this sound is missing. And I said I would make another sound for this so that we maybe could alternate a little bit or do some more interesting stuff than just the same sound over and over again. But looking at my recording, I've almost recorded for an hour, and that was the original challenge. I wanted to do this roughly in an hour. It's been like 55 minutes now. So I don't think there's any time for that. The final thing that I want to do is a quick master here. I know it's not a full finished track, but this is all I could do. I'll show you a little bit of mastering tutorial at the end here. Let's get a loud part here. Final one is going to be boost. The release time with these kind of plugins, especially on your master chain, are very, very important. I want it to be a little bit groovier, so I'm going to try to make this length like exactly where the groove feels like it's coming in halfway, I guess. What I meant by that is I was trying to make it so that it felt like the attack of the kick triggered this plugin and then it releases back into like the offbeat of the track here. Of course, I could look up the exact milliseconds that you get from that, but this is a fairly special limiter. Right now, it's not so special because the focus is all the way down. But once you turn up the focus, then all of these parameters have fairly little meaning with regards to the actual value that they set, and you have to tune them by ear anyway. But this is just like a maximizer. We get a little bit of extra emphasis out of this, which is just like some saturation, I believe. And then just to go through the other two plugins that I set up before, we have this free clip over here, which is just a hard clipper. I'm using this to cut off the highest transients and then turning it down again to have space enough for the maximizer. And then before that, this is my secret mastering weapon, if you will. I don't think there's any like secret magic sauce in producing or anything like that. But if there is, then this is the closest thing to what I have as a secret magic weapon, because I use this in all of my masters. And I just like the difference in tonality that you get from it. Might not be entirely loudness balanced. Let's turn these two down a bit. You can just hear that some of the main elements that you want, mainly that kick, just becomes a lot more upfront. And that is what I like about it. I do have to set this back to where I had it because, of course, we want to go into our next plugin at a certain loudness. But then at the end of the hour, we end up with something that sounds like this. I guess it's probably not the best techno that you've ever heard, but what did you expect? This is my first time really making it. If you do have some tips for me or things that I can improve, let me know in the comments down below, and maybe I'll make a follow-up video where I do this again, but taking all of your feedback into account. Because I'm sure there will be a few producers out here that make techno and actually know what they're doing when they're making techno. So it would be interesting to see what I could improve. Also, for those that are wondering, am I going to become a techno producer now on this channel? No, I don't have any plans of doing that. I just want to continue doing psytrance, and here and there maybe some interesting videos like this. So if you enjoyed this kind of content, please let me know by leaving a like and make sure that you subscribe to the channel. Another way to support me is by checking out some more of my content, so there will be 2 videos up on the screen right now for you to choose from. So just pick one and enjoy, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.